Pentagon has announced a new security assistance package worth $175 million for Ukraine. Now, what's significant is that this aid includes depleted uranium ammunition for Abrams tanks, marking the first time that the United States is sending this controversial armor-piercing munition to Kiev. This announcement comes as Ukraine's counter-offensive against Russian forces enters its fourth month with limited gains. The U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken's visit to Kiev recently coincided with this gesture of support. Blinken said this new assistance will help sustain Ukraine's counter-offensive and build further momentum. The $175 million package is part of a bigger aid package worth over $1 billion announced by Blinken during his visit to the Ukrainian capital. This includes over $665 million in new military and civilian security assistance and millions of dollars in support for Ukraine's air defenses and other areas. While the United Kingdom too had sent depleted uranium munitions to Ukraine earlier this year. This marks the first US shipment of such ammunition and is expected to stir controversy. Why? Because depleted uranium is an extremely dense material, making it highly attractive as a projectile. It was previously used by US tanks in conflicts such as the Gulf War in 1991 and the invasion of Iraq in 2003. However, the use of depleted uranium munitions has been the subject of a fierce debate due to concerns about the serious health risks that it poses, including cancers and birth defects in areas where these munitions were previously used. Russia has strongly denounced the decision, with the Russian embassy in Washington calling it an indicator of inhumanity. The Russian Deputy Foreign Minister Sergei Rybkov labeled it a criminal act, emphasizing on its environmental consequences. He said this is not just an escalatory step, but it is a reflection of Washington's outrageous disregard for the environmental consequences of using this kind of ammunition in a combat zone. This is in fact a criminal act, he said. The Kremlin dismissed Antony Blinken's visit, stating that US aid will not influence the course of what they term as a special military operation. Blinken, during his visit, reiterated Washington's unstinting support for Kiev's efforts to liberate its territory in the south and east of Ukraine. Blinken said, "We're determined in the United States to continue to walk side by side with you. President Biden asked me to come to reaffirm strongly our support to ensure that we are maximizing the efforts that we're making." All right, let's understand this better with Shri. Shri, not too long ago, there was a major controversy over the US decision to provide cluster bombs to Ukraine. Now, many human rights activists around the world had very strongly condemned that decision. And now comes another controversial decision of offering depleted uranium ammunition to Ukraine in this war. Of course, it's rich for Russia to call it an act of inhumanity and criminality. But that apart, is this something that the international community at large is likely to object to and should perhaps object to? How should we see it?
Right. So Neha, it's very important for our viewers to understand and be cautious of a bit of mischief or misinformation which Russia may try to propagate. So these depleted uranium shells are actually not nuclear warheads or anything close to that. The shells are made from nuclear waste, uranium, depleted uranium, hence nuclear waste. And uranium, as you know, is the heaviest element known to man. So their ability to pierce tanks is unmatched. Unlike the titanium shells, which when on impact, the projectile head, turns soft and it goes round, these just go through like a knife through butter. So that's why they are so effective. And once they go inside, they also explode. So they don't just pierce the armor, but they also kill the soldiers inside. So it's pretty deadly and fatal. But these are not nuclear, anywhere close to any sort of nuclear weapon or any nuclear shells. So I want to clarify that first thing. And second, it's not the first time that it's being used. You yourself mentioned, the Iraq War and the Gulf War. It has been used before, and its use is not banned under UN Charter. So it is not illegal for UK and US to provide these two to Ukraine in this battle. Now let us understand why is this sort of a shell being given to Ukraine, first of all. Neha, ultimately, the battle boils down to your feet, your ability to control ground, territory, right? And tanks are an integral part of that strategy where the tanks roll in and they demolish your opposition and they're able to capture territory. Now, according to some estimates, Russia itself says that it has lost about 1,600 tanks. Russia has the world's largest, supply of tanks. It has pressed, I think, if I'm not mistaken, from going by reports, about 6,000, tanks in this war. And according to Ukraine's estimate, it has lost 3,000. Although Russia says it has lost only about 1,600, but still, that's a fairly large number. So as the battle goes on, you'll have Russia will then want to roll in some of its more superior tanks like the T-90s. So those tanks will need better counteroffensive from Ukraine if this war has to be fought and it has to be brought to some sort of a conclusion. But there was a UN report which did say that the shells themselves could cause long-term effect, although the alpha particles which are there in the shell do not cause any harm unless they pierce the human skin. So that's the thing. But if the shells are going to be lying around, they will cause problems, long-term problems. So that is something to keep in mind. But what is important to know is that right now, as per UN regulation, these shells are not barred from use in conflict, Neha.
Not barred from use in conflict, but we'll really have to wait and see how, some of the other NATO countries, in fact, react to this decision by the US. Because remember, some of them have expressed their discomfort with America's decision earlier to provide cluster bombs to Ukraine.